Good morning and welcome to Data Time TV. I'm Emma Thwaites from the Open Data Institute and I'm your host today. We're coming to you live from London's King's Cross. This week is London Data Week and we're delighted to be taking part. Data is part of our everyday lives, and this week a whole host of events are taking place across the capital to explore how we use data and how it can shape our city and our lives for the better. So for the next couple of hours, we'll examine the role of data in art, culture, and sport. We'll hear how artists work with data to explore the world of technology and artificial intelligence, and how data can help to increase participation in sport, particularly at the grassroots level. We'll show The Wizard of AI, an AI-generated film from the artist Alan Warburton, and enjoy an edition of The Data Game, the ODI's data-focused game show, hosted by Gavin Freeguard. As we go along, if you have any questions, then please do drop them into the chat and we'll put them to our panelists at the end of the discussions. And if you'd like to find out more about London Data Week, visit londondataweek.org. So for our first discussion of the morning, I'm delighted to welcome Hannah Redler-Hawes. Hannah is the director of the ODI's Data as Culture programme. And we're also joined by Dr Denis Newman-Griffis from the University of Sheffield. Hello, Hannah and Denis.
Hi, well, Emma, thank you so much for that introduction. I think it might be fun to show a few slides of data as culture from our sort of past 11-year history that is as old as the ODI itself. So it would be really great if we could have our first slide, please. And just to let people know, so Data as Culture is an art programme. It is a programme that the ODI set up at its inception, where it recognised that alongside the really deep, quite abstract, quite hard to grasp research that the organisation does with data and data ecosystems, being able to capture people's imaginations, to be able to show how this sort of geeky invisible thing we call data actually transforms into something that impacts every element of our lives in all different ways, would be a really valuable thing to do. So the artists that we've invited to work with us through exhibition or through new commissions and through research projects are artists who work with data in any medium, in any way you can imagine, from knitted jumpers to advanced AI systems. And we have delivered over 15 exhibitions. We've worked with hundreds of artists, hundreds of artworks that show different experiences and impacts of data on everyday lives in a really multi-sensory, surprising and fun way. So next slide, please. In 2017, not in 2017, there's a bit of a delay here, but we'll stay with this slide. So Thinking Out Loud was an exhibition that we did where we invited artists who work with process and music and sound to create work for our office in Shoreditch. And some of the, I'm not sure why that's disappeared, but I'll just keep talking. It's back. Some of the work that you can see here, the work in between the green background with words and the sort of, well, the middle image is actually an image called Fork Bomb PL by the artist Alex McLean. And it is a printout that shows a computer descending into chaos after Alex had written a code called a fork bomb, which is an elegant way of getting the computer to crash and to visualize its own demise. And we really love the way that played with the glitch. And the image just on the side of that is a visual score by two artists, David Griffiths and Julian Rohrhuber, who have a long-term piece of research called Pixel Kipu, where they look at ancient Peruvian kipu, which are knots in strings that were used as ways of collecting data about corn or gold, but they're also mysterious narrative data and narrative kipu, and they do sound explorations of the narrative kipu as a way of finding out more about the patterns. And in fact, during that time, we had their piece Inca Telefax playing in the ODI offices several times a day, where we had the sound of narrative sound-based kipu broadcast throughout the office to sort of disrupt our thinking. Next slide, please. So Natasha Caruana is a photographic artist who undertook a residency with us in 2016, and she created a double piece work called Curtain of Broken Dreams and Divorce Index. Curtain of Broken Dreams is the slide of is the golden rings that you can see forming a curtain in front of a film that shows Natasha and her husband Simon performing a data dance. And during her residency with the ODI, Natasha, whose work is all involved in love, fantasy, and betrayal, started to look at the government data around divorce and found that divorces are more prevalent in some of the most deprived parts of the country, which all happen to be coastal towns. So the work is very beautiful. It raises lots of questions around what are the external factors that may affect our ability to find lasting love. So it's very poetic, very beautiful, and very, very unexpected way of interrogating and manifesting data. Next slide, please. This is a slide from also a residency with us, where Rohini Devasher, who's based in Delhi, had an online artist residence as part of our Evidence and Foresight group during the lockdown. And she made a major film called 100,000 Suns, which is a 4-part film. It's been shown across the world now, but it started, its first screening was at the Open Data Institute. And she uses, through film, she explored data collected over 150 years at the Kodaikanal Observatory, Solar Observatory in India. And the film offers a narrative that looks at all different means of data collection, from, you know, naked eye observations of the sun to you know, photographic slides and really advanced astronomical apparatus. And one of the really beautiful things about the Kodaikanal Observatory, which she had started researching before her time at the ODI, is that the observatory, since its inception, has been looked after by the same family, so 4 generations of data stewards, you could call them. And through dialogue with our colleagues at the Open Data Institute, we saw this as, you know, a beautiful astronomy story, but also a beautiful story of the long tail of data and how data histories can be told through multiple different means and sort of extend into multiple different directions. Next slide, please. And well, in 2023, myself and Julie Freeman, the artist who founded the Data as Culture art program, joined the research and development team at the ODI to explore power and diplomacy and critical data infrastructure. And as collectively, we were looking at the material architecture of the internet, through which, of course, all the data architectures, you know, have to run out and play. And we were looking at how different material infrastructures around satellites, around undersea cables and earth-based cables were really affecting how the internet will evolve, how people have access to it, what are the power structures, what are the geopolitical questions around it. And as part of that research, Julie created a prototype artwork called Elusive Protocols, which you can see here. This is one of 3 objects. And each of these objects is a material object, but it is a kinetic artwork that is driven by data from land, sea, and satellite data. And it's really designed to have a very, very gentle tapping motion to help people sort of visualize and experience this sense of constant on-off switches, which underwrites our network life, through which, you know, like nothing, including the Zoom we're on now, would be possible. Next slide, please. And here's a really wonderful picture of the Elusive Protocols prototypes at the Shanghai Ming Contemporary Art Museum, where it was included in an exhibition called Postscript of Silence last year, which is brilliant. And we were delighted, as were Invisible Dust, who also co-supported that artwork. Next slide, please. And here is a slide from The Wizard of AI, a little teaser, where last year for our summit, we invited the artist Alan Warburton to make a work that considered the impact of generative AI on artists and artist production. And The Wizard of AI is a very philosophical, it's funny, it's interesting, it's intriguing, 20-minute, almost 100%, 99% AI generated film that was created in 3 weeks in October 2023 and could not have been created in this way at any point in history before that time. So Alan was literally using new tools within hours of their release. He is an expert animator, he's an expert artist himself, but you'll be able to see it after this conversation, and it's really, really worth the look. Next slide, please. I'm here with Denis Newman-Griffis to talk about a lot of things, but in the context of the Framing Responsible AI Implementation and Management Programme, which, like the notion of data, sounds like it might be quite dry and boring, let's face it, but actually it's extremely interesting and affects everyone. And we're looking forward to telling you why in a few minutes. Next slide, please. And we'll end with a little teaser. This is not a data as culture artwork. This is an artwork called Cat Royale by the artist Blast Theory. And it's a utopia where cats live in harmony with artificial intelligence. And it raises an awful lot of questions about whether an AI can keep a cat happier than a cat owner. Now, Denis and I have strong feelings about that as cat lovers. But Denis, I'll pass over to you to tell us why we are sharing a pitch from Blast Theory today.
Yes, thank you very much, Hannah. And so I'm delighted to say that here at the University of Sheffield, we are working with the Open Data Institute, as well as with a few other partners. We're working with the British Library, with Sheffield City Council, and with Eviden on the FRAME project, the Framing Responsible AI Implementation and Management project that Hannah showed our excellent website for just a couple of minutes ago. And we are very delighted to be able to announce today that we are partnering with Blast Theory, who are multiple award-winning artists working in a whole variety of media, to investigate to work with them as co-researchers investigating these questions of what we mean by responsible AI. When we talk about responsible AI, what is it that we're talking about, and who is responsible for it? So who's involved, and what does that look like in practice? And being able to work with artists as innovative as Blast Theory, and to be able to work with Data as Culture and the very strong program that you've just been hearing about really, really interesting work engaging artistic perspectives in data and data in the work of art, is a really fantastic way for us to be exploring what these questions look like about responsible AI and who it's affecting in very human-centered ways.
Brilliant. Well, it would be really great. Thank you for that introduction to Blast Theory. And of course, we are also delighted to be working with them and with you, Denis, and the other partners on the FRAME project. So framing responsible AI might sound a little boring to most people. Could you tell us a bit more about the partners? And as you do, I think it will come clear why this is such important research.
Absolutely. So I'll say that, one of the things that you often encounter in research is that we will put together very dry sounding names for the sake of having a good acronym. And in this case, it was a major part of what we were doing. We wanted to have this idea of a FRAME project. But really the goal behind it, and the reason that we're working with the partners that we are, is there's a lot of discussion going on about what ethical and responsible use of AI in the world means, how we understand the impacts of growing AI use across many different sectors and many different kinds of applications. And what we really need, that the gap that we really saw that led to this project, is an understanding of how do we understand what responsibility means? How are we framing this discussion of use of AI in practice, and what responsible use means. So we brought together a really cross-sector set of partners. So we have the British Library, who's of course a world leader in cultural heritage and information sector. We're working with Sheffield City Council, who's one of the largest local authorities in England. We're working with Eviden, who is a multinational digital transformation and data firm. And we're working with the ODI, who's of course working across sectors to investigate and really bring together best practice around the use of data in many different areas of policy and work. And so by working with these external partners, and then by bringing together our very interdisciplinary team at the University of Sheffield, so we're bringing together people from the Information School, from the Department of Philosophy, from our university library, many different perspectives coming together to try to understand what is this area of responsible AI, what do we mean, who is involved in it, and how do we make it a bit more tangible in the kind of day-to-day work of people and organizations as we move forward.
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, one of the things that's obviously really clear from your discussion is this huge range of different organizations. And of course, that will mean that there's a huge range of languages and expectations and perspectives. And I know that that's been super important to you, is bringing together different perspectives. Why?
Well, AI is increasingly being used everywhere, and it's something that we often talk about AI through a very technical lens of thinking that what AI is it's a technology. It's built by firms, often firms like Google and OpenAI and Microsoft and so on and so forth, and brought to us as products, as things that we pick up and use. But our perspective on AI is really that, for one thing, we're starting to use these systems in increasingly creative ways across all different ways of working, whether it's in professional work where we're using generative AI to help write our emails, whether it's using AI to help drive artistic creation, whether it's looking at data-driven approaches to understanding what is the best policy approach to take. All of these different places, all the different ways that we can work with information are places where we're starting to explore what good use of AI in that space looks like. So to understand AI in practice, we have to bring in those perspectives and those experiences from many, many different areas where it's being used. But more than that, when we think about AI being used, it's not just about the technology. It's also about the humans who are working with it, and it's about the human processes and the human systems of where are we getting the data that we plug into an AI system? What are we doing with what comes out of it? How do we interpret the relationship between people and the technological tools that we use, whether it's AI, whether it's other kind of data systems, whether it's, going back in history, whether it's relating to the plow or the powered loom. These things, these questions about the use of technology are never just technical questions. They're very human-driven questions, and they involve many different aspects of who we are and how we do what we do.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the really important points that we want to talk about today, isn't it, together in this conversation, that it's obviously all the people who work in all the organizations are humans, but they are working within the framework of an organization that has an organizational structure and an institutional agenda. And one of the things that we know, which is why we want to bring artists into the mix in conversations like this, is artists are really good at bringing the conversation back down to the lived experience, back down to the human who walks into the British Library looking for a book or an experience, the human who is a service user at Sheffield City Council, for example, or any city council. And that, I know, is something at the heart of this research, is what will be the impact on us as everyday people navigating life, through these decisions.
Yes, exactly. And when we think about, responsible AI and we think about the impacts of AI, it really is about what will the change be? How do we use these things in practice? It's almost the specific technologies that we use are almost the least important part of the equation, where what we're really thinking about is what is it that we're trying to do? What purpose are we trying to serve? And when we think from that perspective, if I, as a person with my history and my perspectives and my views, are coming into the British Library, coming into Sheffield Council, or engaging with the ODI's latest report, thinking about the data technologies that are involved in that, what matters to me in that process? And what will my experience be of working with other people through the medium of this technology? And that kind of question, that's where we see so much potential, and why we were really very excited to be working with data as culture and now working with blast theory to investigate those kinds of questions from that very human-centered perspective. One of the things that we really don't have enough of in the world of AI is stories about what AI means, how we use it, what it looks like in the world. And the power of stories to shape how we perceive the world around us and how we perceive the people who we're working with is tremendous. So we're very excited to be digging into that a little bit on this project.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really matters a lot to me is how we can use data to work with and navigate complexity, the complexity and the messiness of being a human. And I think this is something that all of the artists we've worked with do, whether they do it in a very poetic way or a very bombastic way or a humorous way. You know, we did an exhibition that wasn't on the slideshow called La Mao, Laughing My Ass Off, where we looked at humor in data, and we had artists working with fecal transplant, and we had artists working with the unintelligence of AI systems, and artists recreating some of the internet's most famous memes, like, you know, Ceiling Cat, for example, by Eva and Franco Mattes. So, but these are entry points in a way, and these are, you know, an artwork is multiple different things that you can come in that responds to what you bring as a viewer, really. So all art is, you know, experienced differently by every person who brings a different field of experience to it. And I think that one of the fears that people have with data is of being, you know, boxed in.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's one of the really important parts that we wanted to bring to this project and to the experience of working with artistic perspectives, working with our partners, is looking at, you know, when we work with data systems, when we work with collecting data and processing it with AI and producing more data or producing actions that come out of it, what we're working with is information about people and information about the world. And what we have in a data system and what an AI system is doing is just taking one snapshot, whatever snapshot we choose about the world, and we're saying, this is what we're going to learn about, this is what we're going to operate with, how we're going to make our decisions. Some of the work that I do, not in the context of the Frame project, but some of the work that I do is in the area of AI and disability. And one of the things that we look at a lot in that area is how really questioning how disability and disabled experience and experience of general function in life is represented in data, how we choose to represent that, how we choose to work with that in collecting data and manipulating it with AI systems. And we can really see in that, you know, in the area of disability, but we can see this much more broadly as well, that the choices we make about how do we represent people and their experiences in data, and what do we do with that to work with those representations, that is where so much of the potential benefit and so much of the risk and potential harm of misuse of AI systems comes from. It's really about how do we want to understand the people who are around us, their experiences, and what we want to do together with them.
Yeah, and also I think the important thing in the disability conversation is that, you know, we're living in a world that has been designed for a very tiny percentage of people that represent a very tiny percentage of experience. One of the projects we did with Data as Culture was we worked with the University of Southampton Data Stories project, and they asked us to work with a community who for whom data might be important. And we were really keen to work with people whose voices at that time we weren't seeing being represented in data conversations. So we worked with Birmingham Open Media and neurodivergent adults in the West Midlands with the artists Harmeet Chagga Khan, Ben Neal and Edie Jo Murray. And there were several workshops, but the output is an absolutely beautiful physical digital pinball machine, as well as an online mood pinball. It's called Mood Pinball. And in this piece, Edie, who is autistic and neurodivergent, and created glorious visuals for it. The pinball metaphor was chosen as a way of representing the report that we got from a lot of the participants, that being autistic in a neurotypical world can make you feel a bit like an alien, and a pinball field is slightly controllable but slightly not controllable. There's a lot of chance and there's a lot of unexpected things. But this particular pinball machine was designed to respond to the feedback we got from the group, that although the group was clearly a lot of difference within the group, everyone in the group found noise difficult or had hyperacusis. And the city is an area that's very loud and it can be very, very uncomfortable if you are noise sensitive. And lo and behold, we couldn't find any real open data about noise in cities, which could make life a lot more comfortable for a lot of people in the way they navigate. We synthesized, the scientists at Southampton synthesized some data around noise, and that's embedded at the heart of the game engine. So although this is a piece that's shown at the V&A, it's shown in multiple festivals, Now Play This, at the ODI as well. It's a really serious piece of research that's considering, you know, who the city's made for, who gets to navigate it comfortably and how. And also it's a really beautiful, meditative, lovely experience. But talking about perspectives, as you just have, I think it would be really nice to dig into why, for you, being interdisciplinary with the Frame project is so important. And I'm not just talking about artists and scientists, but you have a really wide range of scientific practitioners and social science people involved in the project. Can you say a bit more about that?
Yeah, we do, and it is really, I think it's a major strength of the project and a key to the kinds of insights that we're already being able to generate and that we'll be generating certainly as the project comes to a conclusion. So we've got, you know, I'm a computer scientist by background, but now working a bit more in a social sciences mode. Colleagues on the project are experts in cultural policy and new media studies, in library and information sciences, in applied philosophy. You know, all of these areas reflect different ways of interacting with AI systems in the world and what their role is and what their impact is. And by being able to bring these very different perspectives and very different professional experiences, ideas of what research looks like, ideas of what we can learn, what we are able to get is a much more multidimensional and a much more holistic overall perspective on what is the role of AI in the world. I mean, we live in the world around us, the social structures around us are determined by many, many different perspectives, many different kinds of expertise, many different kinds of decisions. And so when we're thinking about something like AI that is specifically about processing information and exchanging information between people, we have to be working with that in this very interdisciplinary way where we can understand the different viewpoints on what that means and how we can bring scholarly expertise and academic rigor into it, but also how we can understand what is this going to mean to people.
And
You know,
how we can translate that into something as fun as watching cats in a utopia. I mean, that is actually really important, isn't it? It's things that make it seem real and believable and unbelievable as well. I think we're coming to the point where we need to see if there are any questions. But I do just want to end by saying one of the really important things building on that with the interdisciplinary is how artists have always held industry to account and not coming from the bottom line. So artists are coming from the very, you know, deep, profound lived experience, aesthetic experience, philosophical, cultural and ethical experience, and raising those questions. And it just feels so significant to be able to explore this in a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary way with you. But I will turn to Emma, who is not on screen at the moment, but I can see her, and ask if we have any questions.
I'm here now. That was really fascinating. Thanks to both of you. And I just want to make sure that I know we've got lots of colleagues that are taking part in the webinar today and in the periphery. I just want to make sure that somebody's put the websites for both Data as Culture and for the Frame project into the chat, so anyone who wants to find out any more about those can very easily look into it. Okay, so we have a question hot off the press here from Elise Barb, or Barge, I'm sorry if I've mispronounced that. They say, previously you mentioned that there is a real lack of stories in discussions of AI development or around responsible AI. What's one story that you've come across that you found particularly insightful, and what lessons did that teach you around designing tools and data policy and all of those other knotty things? Do you want me to repeat it?
No, that's an excellent question. Thank you for raising that. I think the first story that I would go to is some very well-known work by Virginia Eubanks that was published in a book in 2018, I believe, where she was looking at the use of AI systems in the context of social welfare processes in an eastern part of America, so in the city of Pittsburgh, where I actually used to live. And they were looking at how algorithmic design, like algorithmic processes in determining next steps in child welfare support, were leading to really quite racially biased outcomes in the process of that. And what was told, what she told, and I think part of why it was so effective, was that she didn't just talk about here's what the data were meant to show, here's what they were actually showing, and here's how the people were relating to the system. But she really talks through the story of here's where these data are coming from, here's what these services are trying to do, and what the people who are in them, who are working in them, who are engaging with them, what their perspectives are. And by talking through each of these stages of what are people trying to do, where are they getting this data, how do they understand what's coming out of the systems, and what does that lead to downstream, you get this much greater overall perspective on what is the role of AI and algorithmic systems as one part of this much larger and much more complex and much more human whole.
So I can build.
Same to you.
Yeah. So we did an exhibition online called Rules of Engagement as part of Data as Culture, which Antonio Roberts guest curated. And this was an exhibition where we were asked to consider from the ODR R&D team something that might encourage people to think about sustainable data ethics, so ongoing data ethics. And we commissioned the artists Nick Breeze, Everest Pipkin, and A.M. Dark to make new works. They're all online. You can find them via culture.theodi.org. Everest Pipkin created an interactive game which reveals as a story that you click through called Shell Song. And the story in Shell Song touches on many aspects, but the key storyline is that Everest contributed their voice to reading audiobooks for people who are visually impaired, and then found that their voice had been embedded in some of these deepfake voice technologies, and that many people who contribute their voices in these ways don't realize, but their voice print is being, embedded into these systems. And the work really asks the question, what does it feel to be faced with the ghost of your own body through these data systems? Through this beautiful narrative story, it makes you really think about how this technology is being built, how it's being played out, what's permission, what's not permission. And it's just a very engrossing story. Equally, A.M. Dark's piece, Fairly Intelligent.tech, is an online interactive experience where you take on the role of a person being audited by an AI to be the sort of auditor, and it's interviewing you. But what you don't realize is that it has been designed from the perspective of a Black feminist genderqueer scholar whose biases are completely up top, they're completely out there. And as A.M., the artist who invented it, says, if you think that's unfair, you haven't been listening.
Excellent. Thank you. I do want to try and just squeeze one more question in because it's such a good question. And this one comes from Muzan Shikari, and they ask, do you see art adding a human dimension to a highly quantified view of our world, or art creating new ways of datafying the world and new forms of collecting data? Or I guess this is my bit. Is it both?
I was going to say, yes, it's both for me. I think that what we see with Data as Culture is artists like Julie Freeman, who's identified, 25 data types to apply to ways that you can use data as an art material, as a, piece of her PhD research. But also artists just showing that everything we care about is something that in one way we kind of datafy. We datafy things that we care about. You collect your coins, you might note down how many precious things you have. I don't know. There are many different ways that we collect and work with data, and it's just a human thing. It's not, it's man-made or person-made. I think that's one of the really important things to recognize. Equally, artists are continually and always have seeking to challenge anything that we create, including technological systems that seem to settle on a rigid way of thought, particularly a rigid way of thought that may generate hierarchies that hold people in a position that is unreasonable, unfair, and untenable, really, in a human way. I'm going to say that bold claim.
Excellent. Thank you, Hannah. And Denny, you over to you. You get the last word.
Yes, I would agree. It's definitely both. I mean, the role, the ability of art to help provide that human dimension for the data that we have, for the quantifications that we have, is incredibly important. And to see what those quantifications mean and what their potential impact is. At the same time, similar to what Hannah said, part of the journey is understanding that the data that we have are not the only data that we could have. And art can be a really incredible way of imagining new types of data, new forms of data, new ways of representing people, our experiences, the things that we care about in the world that are driven by what we care about and what we want to do and the kind of world that we want to imagine. And so bringing those new imaginings into actual data is a transformation and a source for radical change in this world of working with data in many ways.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. So Denny and Hannah, thank you.
Thank you.
And now, what better way to follow that discussion than to show the Wizard of AI, which Hannah mentioned just now in that panel. So none of us can ignore, of course, the vast impact of AI on artistic practice and the creative industries, as we've just heard. The ODI's Data as Culture programme invited one of the leading voices in that field, and that's the curator and artist, Alan Warburton, to create a new AI-generated work. Now, his response was this deeply insightful and humorous film, and it was made using technology that wasn't actually available until October 2023. So for the next 20 minutes, I would urge you to sit back, relax, and enjoy The Wizard of AI.
Producers, Allison, can you explain what internet is?
Is a whole group of networks.
Legal troubles over copyright infringements aren't slowing down Napster.
A whole lot of new AI, meta AI, a bunch of AI. Here on the table with you are going to be a bunch of AIs.
The rise of generative AI is a pivotal moment in the history of technology and visual culture. It offers us many magical potions and promises, but what's really going on behind the curtain? I'm an artist and an AI collaborator, and I'm here to tell you what I know about generative AI. I suppose I'm a double agent. I work the borders between tech and art, between theory and practice. I see both sides. The media industries who love the spectacle of new tech, and the culture industries who are much more suspicious and reticent. This polarization tends to obscure the real issues, and generative AI is here to stay. So how do we strike a balance between tech hype and tech doom, between fascination and fear, delight and despair, or wonder and panic? When it comes to generative AI images, the Wonder Camp jumps onto the speeding train of new tech and sees the benefits it has for profits, productivity, and creative expression. Whereas the Panic Camp looks in from the outside, seeing threats to society, ethics, and well-being. Wonder Maniacs adopt a short-termist approach where just about all innovation is seen as progress. It's a bit like technological Stockholm syndrome. Panickers adopt a more holistic, long-termist view, which, despite hand-wringing, often accepts new technology begrudgingly. It's like diet Luddism. These might be very different perspectives, but they overlap in certain ways too. They're like different immune responses to a transplant, one that surrenders and one that struggles. But both are trained to metabolize technological hype cycles in certain ways. Whether unboxing iPhones or ideas, both are hooked on the upgrade. In fact, Wonder and Panic are not strangers, but siblings. And together they give us something like a Wonder-Panic theory of innovation. The philosopher of technology Bernard Stiegler thought about innovation as a pharmacological process. Every new technology is both a cure and a poison that demands another cure. Wonder-Panic is a social expression of this. It's a feature of modern techno-capitalism. And it's escalating quickly with generative AI, where if deepfakes are too good, tech bros can just build better deepfake detectors, which will also be capable of creating better deepfakes. This arms race has been growing behind the scenes for years. And while many activists, lawyers and policymakers try to hold Wonder Panic at arm's length, artists, designers, media workers and the general public are helplessly synced with Wonder Panic. We wait for updates, anticipate crises. It's almost like the future is the problem. The problem with tech futures, often called the technological imaginary, is illustrated well by writer Joanne McNeill, who a few years ago wrote about this clip of Kanye West talking about when he hung out with Elon Musk.
What does Kanye West and Elon Musk talk about? The future.
Okay, one more time.
The future.
And here's what Joanne had to say.
The future ignores complexity. The future denies how the internet amplifies existing hierarchies and upholds structural inequality. The future is every broken promise of every new app or internet service. Future peddling is about as noble a profession as astrologer, and one with about as little accountability.
What Joanne gets at here is how vulnerable to prognostication we are in precarious times. We look for oracles and gurus to calm our fear or guide us to greater profit and efficiency, and often they grant us wishes that come with a sting in the tail. The future's everywhere, in fashion and aesthetics, in stocks and shares, and in platforms and devices. But the future's flawed. It's often about disruption rather than construction, about consumption rather than consolidation. It's about better screens, not bigger pictures, and upgrades, not utopias. The tech revolution is in permanent beta, and AI hype exemplifies this. AI oracles invoke the future when they demonstrate the revolutionary products that will free people up for other things. But they rarely acknowledge the politics of their products. Society just has to play catch up and clean up. So let's be careful around the future. Oracles move fast, they break things. Maybe, rather than feeding the hype of generative AI, it's better to turn around and look at the wreckage. And a lot has happened.
It was 2022, November, but it felt like spring in the valley. News had traveled. There was a hit on the artist. A lot of talk about prophecies and sacrifices. Bright new futures where nobody gotta worry no more. There were a few guys surveilling, some mobsters thinking they're Robin Hood. Harmless mostly. Nobody gave it a second thought. But then along comes this guy David Holtz, calls himself Midjourney. And he's got a connect, right? It's called the Lion. It's a dataset, laundered on a server farm run by Stability AI. Lion, well, it's a Frankenstein's monster. It goes way back to Common Crawler scavenger outfits scraping the net since 2008. It's got petabytes of images, metadata, tags, from Getty, DeviantArt, everywhere. And Midjourney suddenly figures out this way of sorting the data, shaping it. Turns out, the artists have been getting around a little too much, sharing everything. And that's how they got him in the end. But hey, that's how the world worked before November 22. Different rules now, oh boy, genie's out of the bottle.
Okay, so let's not get caught up in the Wonder Panic here. Midjourney's November 2022 release did change the game, but it was built on years of intense research in decentralized tech communities. And maybe the artist didn't die, maybe they were just informally reassigned. But the genie certainly has been let out of the bottle. The thing that isn't talked about enough is how visual artists of all kinds have been forced to respond to the cultural, aesthetic and legal shock of Midjourney version 4. It really shook things up permanently. But why? Let's imagine that what Midjourney and Stability AI did was like a gigantic fishing expedition, a dredging. In the dredge, all kinds of image life were caught, but user-generated sources predominate. Outliers, unidentifiable creatures, and small fry were put back in the sea. When this image dredge happened, everything was made into a kind of intelligent pixel soup. An unethical kind of bisque, or a rich and powerful new stock. But that's not the end of the story. From that rich new stock, AI image generators like Midjourney reverse engineered a new kind of genetically modified superfish. A shape-shifting every image, it can be anything you want. It'll mimic many styles, even if it is a bit dead behind the eyes. But the superfish has a strangely distinct flavour profile and a particular genetic code. Midjourney prioritises commercial imagery, and is weighted in favour of certain figures and aesthetics from the recent past, as well as hyperreal fantasy art. Delicious. But the thing about this model is that it keeps evolving. It eats the competition, learning from user preferences and interactions, and this is how Midjourney weights and develops its stock quickly. And this is an invasive species, now released back into the sea. Since mid-2022, AI has produced over 15 billion images, and for reference, it took photographers 150 years to produce that many. Automating image production has turned the sea of images to a swamp of synthetic life. Nobody can dredge in the same way again, and maybe nobody needs to. Maybe we have what we need. Anyway, enough with fish metaphors. What have we learned? Well, the image game has changed. Certain images are a lot easier to make, others aren't. Some jobs remain, others don't. But how have artists responded? So here we are, back in the Wonder Panic present. In the Wonder Camp, AI oracles, platforms and influencers are everywhere. Many creatives embrace new tools, like this animation director.
AI technique number one was using Midjourney to create all of these characters. Our process was basically churn out iteration after iteration until we found ones that we liked. So it's kind of like having a giant team of concept artists at your service at all hours of the day who respond instantly, and I absolutely love it.
And he's right, of course. It's exactly like that. Generative AI has taken the jobs of a giant team of art directors, and now we can all play Midjourney or Adobe, not the artists. That aside, people are making amazing things, and we'll see them in a moment. But over in the Doom camp, the art police simply denounce AI like it's another NFT craze. But others engage resistance with tools for artists to dredge their own datasets, train their own models, and track down where their work has been appropriated. And these tools are great, but sadly not particularly geared towards jobbing creatives. What's more, neither of these responses address the true threat of AI image engines. Dominant AI models are like kinky statisticians. They like to watch, to learn from every uploaded artwork and interaction. Maybe resistance lies in tools like Nightshade, which allows you to poison your images and confuse the AI models. But wait, what about the wonder? Let's look at what people are making, or rather, what generative AI does well, and what it doesn't. Starting with the basics, AI videos are both terrible and wonderful in their own way, but the stills are astounding. They're full of expensive-looking details. Generative AI engines can take $1 million photo shoot and recreate it in seconds. And that is the secret of the special sauce. What makes this special sauce special is that it's, of course, full of work, all the labour, equipment, engineering and technical expertise of its source images. But the sauce hides a lot of mystery meat. Most AI engines are famously bad at depicting fingers, for example, so much so that real-life sculptures have begun to imitate the problem. And let's not even mention the horror show of AI genitals or the politics of banned prompts. Generative AI is a distorted mirror, and it has many blind spots, both engineered and accidental. What it's really good at, on the other hand, is representing and remixing mainstream culture. Again, expensive-looking intellectual property, brands, cinematic universes, and iconic architectural styles are all statistically dominant images from the recent past that are now being interbred. But how does one police such leaky IP? Style, the beating heart of visual culture for hundreds of years, has arguably reached its final form. A statistical pattern that can be replicated automatically. Anything that can be associated with pixels or metadata works. But that's not to say that many AI images contain any real insight or meaning. They have style, but they lack substance. While the core of mainstream style can be easily reproduced, so can niche styles from fantasy, fan art, fetish, or fanaticism. These are part of a different kind of core, keywords and suffixes that can be appended to just about any term to teleport to strange parts of latent space. It's a kind of liquid postmodernism where peripheral aesthetics can now be greenlit and remixed for the special sauce treatment. But this begs the question, if the periphery is now the core, can any aspect of visual culture remain outside of the model? AI has an uncanny knack for period imagery. It can iterate easily on themes from the past to explore alternative histories, unmade sequels and failed utopias. It's not so good, however, at imagining the present. The closer we get to now, the more the images just look like Midjourney special sauce, which makes sense because Midjourney might well be the aesthetic of 2023. It's a strange moment where the style of statistical style becomes style. Statistically, that is. So that's what's going on with AI images now. But things are moving fast. The problem here is that in looking at the past and the present, the only place left to go is the future. As soon as you identify poisons, you point to cures. And before you know it, you're brewing potions and predictions. Because of course, if glossy expensive stills are really easy to make, labour redirects to the lucrative frontier of AI video. And this might well lead to climate pornocalypse. Why? Well, because in current AI cultures, the frontier of AI motion is occupied by armies of bros churning out millions of movies where they force their sexy female puppets to dance. These are the innovative artists that the AI revolution liberated. Next, if AI special sauce is full of mystery meat, then prices for good cuts go up. We're all on the assembly line now, as unwaged AI teachers and even paid subscribers, slicing up images in a massively multiplayer mystery meat modification scheme. AI users will make latent space legible and palatable, developing better AI tools for platforms and brands, whose concerns over IP remix will lead to IP lockdown and probably the privatization of latent space. Big brands can defend their territory, but it's harder for individual artists to do the same. Could big AI models shrink or splinter? Could piracy flourish, prompting the need for more passports and licenses to govern or farm latent space? Will there be one rule for them and another for us? Next, if style is predictable, it makes content with substance and authenticity more valuable. But if that's the case, expect an evolution in spam wars with a premium for automated systems that can identify true substance accurately. Again, this needs more stringent territorial measures, content filters, image recognition, IP tracking, and much more human reinforcement. And if style, as a statistical core, breeds a new kind of anti-statistical periphery, might we be on the cusp of a new kind of anti-core underground or authentic post-AI creativity? Of course, there's going to be an inevitable knee-jerk pivot away from AI images towards all kinds of non-networked value, but what else could an anti-core entail? Can we use AI without drawing the roving eyes of the kinky statistician? Finally, if the past is easy for AI, and in the present it just sees special sauce, then the future gets misty. Ask Midjourney to imagine Midjourney, and it gives you fantasy visions of endless horizons. Ask it to imagine the future of creativity, and it will give you a vision of a future past. Let it zoom out of a cinematic universe, and you'll see only fantasies that don't include creative labour. Where is the artist here? So we have a dilemma. Do we lean into the AI fire, turn away, or fan the flames? Has The Apprentice grown too strong? Are we Oppenheimer, Turing, or Obi-Wan? Are we training genies for Thanos? Is photography a zombie? Am I just another oracle? Is art bankrupt? What is it to collaborate? Why do we dream of genies? Wake up, Dorothy. Art has never been the kind of profession that should be automated at scale, and it never will be. Robin Hood didn't steal from the poor and give to the rich. Tech isn't magic, but it's also not just a tool, despite what the wizards of AI tell you. But here I am, worrying about the future again. It'll probably be fine. Artists will find a way. And in the meantime, show me some AI candy.
Wow, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. It's a pretty amazing piece of work, very thought-provoking. So just a reminder that you're watching Data Time TV from the Open Data Institute, and this is all part of London Data Week. And so to another aspect of life in London and life in London data, and this is truly part of the beating heart of the capital, sport and leisure. Every day, hundreds of thousands of Londoners take part in physical activities, from local football leagues to walking and running in our beautiful parks and open spaces. And of course, messing around in boats or otherwise on rivers and canals. And what many people probably don't realise is the role that data plays in these activities, which is quite significant. And so to tell us more, I'm joined by our next panel of experts. They are Molly Hrudka from the FA, sorry about the poor pronunciation there, Molly, Adam Freeman-Pask from Fulham Reach Boat Club, and Andrew Newman from the ODI's Open Active Initiative. Welcome, everyone. So, I'm going to start off with that question about the interrelationship between data and sport and leisure. Now, people might not always assume, of course, that data and sport have any kind of a relationship, that technology isn't a huge part of our sort of physical activity lives. So I wonder if I could ask each of you in turn, what is that relationship, and what's the role of data in sport and physical activity generally? So Molly, I'm going to come to you first.
Thanks, Emma, and thanks everyone for having me. So I think people probably are more familiar with the crossover between data and sport than they may think. For example, you know, a lot of people interact with those stats from the elite and pro game, right? So England had 63% of the possession, but only 2 shots on target versus Slovakia on Sunday. I'm sure everyone is well aware. I think people are also probably familiar with the tools that track physical exercise, like Strava. And I think in grassroots at the FA, we are looking to bring both of those elements into the grassroots football setting. But currently, we're a little bit more focused on using data for a couple of key priorities. So one is around increasing participation, and the second is around improving that experience for those who are already participating in the game. So a couple of quick examples for that. One objective we're trying to reach is growing the number of women and girls participating in football. So to do that, we might look at data that highlights which clubs are currently lacking provision of a women and girls team. We might look at how we can support those clubs to either create or partner to create those offerings. Or we may want to build, you know, more high quality pitches. To look at that, we might review data that shows us kind of the areas of the country where we've got the highest density of teams and the least number of pitches or quality pitches per population. We might look to those areas where we can have kind of the greatest impact with new facilities. And then, you know, finally, a big one is around behavior. So we want to improve behavior both on and off the pitch in grassroots settings. So to tackle this, we might look at data that gets at the drivers of those negative behaviors, and also look at data that kind of shows us what types of campaigns or initiatives that might be best at addressing it. So I think those are just some quick examples of how we at the FA are kind of using data and digital in the grassroots football game.
Great examples. Thanks, Molly. Adam, I'm going to ask you the same question, this interrelationship between data and sport and leisure.
Oh, well, yeah, thanks for having us as well. It's massive for us. So I represent a sport for good charity called Fulham Reach Boat Club, which is a single site water sports charity based near Hammersmith Bridge in London. And for us, data and technology are huge in terms of enabling us to get so many people out on the water. So, we aim to get around 2,000 people out on the water a year through one venue, which is absolutely mind-boggling and is a scheduling nightmare. I compare ourselves to like a little busy airport. We've got boats taking off and landing like every minute of the day. Now, to do that, we have several sort of data journeys that we go through. So there's all the information we put out there about when and where and what we're offering. And that's a sort of like onboarding and kind of a marketing or an awareness piece around data. Then there's all the booking and the scheduling, which is around who, when, what, which coach, which boat, all that kind of stuff that we have to deal with as well, which is another category of data. Then there is the actual session itself, which requires like risk assessments. Is the water quality okay? Are the tidal conditions safe? What's the weather? What's the wind doing? Is there going to be lightning? All that data that's collected as the session starts. And then we got the fun follow-up, which is around making sure people have had a good experience, learned something, and hopefully want to come back. But also we collect all that impact data around, what did it do in terms of having a positive experience on their life? Did it make them feel better? Was it a boost on their mental well-being? Do they feel like they have beginning to form an activity habit? So there's quite a few different pockets of data that we collect throughout a journey when we bring someone into sport. And obviously we use lots of different systems to do that. So for us, data and technology plays a huge part of enabling us to get so many people out on the water, really.
So I'm getting a sense, as you were talking, Adam, and Molly before you, I was thinking heaps and heaps and heaps of data. And obviously when data is sort of unstructured and isn't organised, collected in kind of standard ways, then people don't benefit from it, perhaps, as much as they might do. So my next question is about how you can put structure around that data and how you can give it greater utility, I guess, in order to extend participation, make it easier for people to engage and get involved, whether that's fans or participants. And I'm actually going to come to Andrew next to talk a little bit about this and some of the data governance mechanisms, the sort of the process that you put around that to make sure that we all benefit from that data.
Thanks, Emma. So as Emma said at the start, I look after a project at ODI called Open Active, and Open Active is all about making it easier for people to find and then access opportunities to take part in sport and physical activity. And that's really important because Sport England research shows that in England, over a quarter of adults are doing less than 5 minutes of physical activity every day, and that those levels of activity are even lower for people with disabilities or long-term health issues, for people from low socioeconomic backgrounds, for people from Asian and Black populations. And actually for women, the levels of activity for women are much lower than they are for men. And that has a massive impact on our public services. It means that people's overall health and well-being is poorer, and that has a cost to the economy. And some research that ODI did with Frontier Economics shows that actually, if we can get people moving more, we can probably improve productivity by about 20 million every year. So we are leading a cross-industry project to make it easier for people to find and access sport. And we're doing that by unlocking all of the data that sits in the booking systems across the sector. So local authority leisure providers, private gyms, national governing bodies like the FA, where Molly is, small sports clubs like Adams, all have data about the sessions that they're running and the schedule that they're running and who those sessions are suitable for. And what our project is doing is essentially providing structure for that data. We have data specifications, and we've worked really closely with the people who produce the booking systems to build those specifications into their booking systems. And the result of that is feeds of standardized open data about opportunities to take part in sport and physical activity. Those data feeds can then be used by people building apps who are trying to get people to move more. And those apps might be targeted at specific places. They might support specific sports, or they might support campaigns such as Everybody Moves from Paralympics GB, which is aiming to improve activity for people with disabilities and long-term health conditions. But it can also be used in analytics. So you'll be able to look at the provision in an area and understand where you need to build more swimming pools or more tennis courts, or where it would be a good opportunity to roll out a new branch of Adams Rowing Club. I think this is a particular problem in urban areas like London. People don't stay in their boroughs. If you're in Camden, how do you find out what sport is available in Westminster or in Islington? And actually, London Sport have done some really good work around this, building activity finders for London, for specific London boroughs, but also working across the whole of London, so you can find out what sport is available to you across the whole city.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. Very comprehensive. And I guess the same question to you, Molly, from the FA's grassroots point of view, how you use data to extend participation, make it easier for people to get involved.
Yeah, I think what Andrew's hit on is super important, and I'd say that's kind of half of the puzzle. I won't dwell on that again, but I think to focus on the other half of what we're trying to solve, it's also about making sure, like, you can structure data all you want, right? But if the opportunities aren't suitable for people, accessible to people, affordable or appropriate, then no one's going to engage with them, right? So I think that's the kind of other part of what we're looking at here is, how do we offer opportunities that are suitable? You know, we recognize that not everyone wants to play 11-a-side football where you've got to train twice a week with matches on Sundays. It's about offering kind of alternative formats. So looking at kind of the book and play style sessions or the more casual kind of sessions. We also need to make sure those opportunities are accessible. So I'm talking about accessibility in the geographic sense. Like, we want to make sure that people aren't having to drive or take a bus for hours to find the opportunity nearest to them. And also accessibility, of course, making sure that we're meeting the needs of all the people that want to participate who may have disabilities. Affordable as well. Like, we know that the cost of living has kind of taken its toll across leisure and sport. So we need to make sure that football remains affordable for all. Otherwise, it's really difficult to engage. And then finally, of course, appropriate. So it's you know, it sounds obvious, but not trying to play 11v11 with 6-year-olds, right? But delivering like really appropriate, age-appropriate, safe, fulfilling opportunities that people want to engage in and continuing to come back and engage in. So that's, I think, the other side of that piece that Andrew was speaking to.
Excellent, thank you. And Adam, slightly different question, but the same. I guess people might have this idea that rowing is quite an elite sport. It certainly has that kind of I guess cachet with the Oxford-Cambridge boat race and various other things. So I would imagine that extending participation is really important for you, you know, getting people to understand that rowing is a sport that anyone really can take part in. So I wonder how you deploy data in order to extend participation in the activities that you offer at Fulham Reach.
Yeah, Emma, you twigged on an issue we always have to come up against, which is the perception of our sport. For me, in London, there's 15,000 football pitches of space out there on the Thames for people to go out and enjoy the physical and mental well-being benefits of being on urban blue space and making use of a really underutilized asset that London has. Yes, we have to come over that sort of barrier of the perception of the sport. We launched a really cool outreach program this year, which was the youth boat race. So taking something like the boat race, which has a particular image, and making it for the local community and having local kids compete in that in a friendly format was really invigorating and helping to change that perception locally and that relationship people have with the river. That's obviously one challenge we have, but then obviously the data side is the other bit. So to reach new people, we have to sort of meet some of their questions around when, where, is it right for me? Like, what do I need to bring? All these kind of basic things. But the more you try and reach people, the more you're dealing with people that have never really come into contact with this stuff, and they have a lot of questions. Now, sometimes when you run group classes, that kind of irons it out a little bit, and you get a data. It's quite nice to run sort of sessions at a particular time for a specific group of people. You know, and that's one way around to getting to it. But actually, for me, the more data we can push out around our sport, using things like Open Active, but also broader, like the example Andrew gave about boroughs. So we fall within Hammersmith and Fulham. Now, it's amazing that actually our charity has been recognised as Charity of the Year for Hammersmith and Fulham. Our borough recognises us as a core community service and a real bridge into sort of using this amazing asset. But just up the Hammersmith and City line, we have Kensington and Chelsea, or just over Hammersmith Bridge, we have Richmond and Wandsworth. And we don't have that same quite connection with those boroughs yet, but that's where data flowing through other platforms can reach people a bit easier. So yeah, it's so important for us to kind of put on the radar that we are an activity that people can get part in. And alongside that, we're doing lots of things to try and make people feel more at home with this sport. And once they come down, they might come down and do a river cleanup, for example. So that's like walking on the foreshore, picking up plastic bottles, using it to create art, that kind of thing. So the relationship with us might start with something that isn't rowing, but then hopefully they do get to experience going on the water, and that might be through us as rowing, or we host another charity, which is the London Sport Trust, and they offer kayaking, or even it's just being by the river and having a coffee morning with us. Hopefully that we can build a relationship with the river that can benefit people's health after the end of that.
Excellent, thank you. And actually, this notion of sports as kind of community builders and creating a sense of community around a sporting activity or a sporting location, I think is really important. You also touched on, you know, the deployment of different platforms, which I guess speaks to this idea of innovation and technological innovation, and how you deploy innovation to bring people together and to, you know, not just for marketing activities, but to also, you know, kind of open your doors and maybe make certain sports appear less elitist. So I wondered if we could kind of slightly switch now to this point about innovation, and maybe thinking about artificial intelligence as well here a bit, and you know how you are, all of you, using different innovative technologies to extend your reach, extend your participation, open up the doors of your sport and of your community. And Adam, I'm sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot and come back to you again, because I'm really taken by some of the sort of direct community initiatives that you're involved with. And I wonder if you could say a little bit more about how you deploy technology in the delivery of those.
Well, thanks, Emma, for picking up. So yeah, for us, we might be called a boat club and rowing might be our primary offer, but we really are a community hub. And actually, it's a talking point for bringing people together, connecting them with the environment, and hopefully they benefit from the health and wellbeing benefits of being involved in the activity. Yes, technology and moving that forward is hopefully where I can see us grow, because we are a single site. We're trying to be a centre of excellence and accommodating lots of different user groups in a really inclusive environment, and really hopefully creating a model of what the sports club can look like for the future. And technology and things like AI will play a big part of that. For me, in my day-to-day at the moment, it's brilliant basics all the way. You know, we need to make sure we run smoothly, we're efficient. And some of the systems we use currently for booking or resource management or, you know, handling queries, we are seeing the evolution of these software products to incorporate little bits of AI here and there. I think we've all seen that in the way we work, where little things are being introduced around the sides, but we haven't got the kind of radical jump in terms of here's a big solution for you. For example, for me, scheduling and knowing right person, right boat, right coach, all that kind of 3D puzzle that we juggle with every day is still a manual human task. I don't know if it'll ever become fully automated, but there's an element at which there could be some assistance in there incorporating in years to come, which would really boost our efficiency on site. In the meantime, we have used AI to collect good customer feedback, because we're really good at collecting the quantitative data. You know, we can really collect the number of people that have been through our door or the people we want to reach really easily, because we have various different software that can do that for us. But the more qualitative stuff, so when we interview people or we survey them and we understand their journey and their experience with the sport and where the barriers have been, we have actually used things like AI transcription to help us with kind of collecting that data a bit quicker. And then we have used AI a little bit to explore the thematics on that as well. Because when you do collect that data, as you said before, it becomes quite big and unstructured. And actually you want to be able to sort of comb through it quite quickly, because we are at max capacity most of the time. So we have explored with the use of AI in that sense with particular products in that area. But I really welcome the opportunity for when something comes in that can really help with the scheduling nightmare, which I think all grassroots clubs that are trying to fit a lot in you inevitably hit a wall as to who can use the facility, how do you kind of maximize its use, really.
Adam and Andrew, I guess this sort of, in a way, it gets to the heart of the Open Active Initiative, because one of the hopes is that in publishing all of this open data, that people will design new applications, design new technologies that really, bring the benefits of those data to the population. So I wonder if you could say a little bit about your views on innovation and new tech and potentially AI, and how that might lead to greater participation and I guess a healthier, fitter London population.
Thanks, Emma. So I think the first thing to acknowledge is that we know that AI is going to be critical in all sectors. It's transformational in a way that the World Wide Web was transformational 20-something years ago. But actually, to make good use of AI, you need really good quality data. You need good quality structured data and unstructured data. And at ODI, we've been talking a lot recently about the idea that AI must be data-centric. The organisations that are building and using these models really need to consider the governance and the management of the data that's being used in those models, and they need to be open with people so they can fully understand the capabilities of those models. And I like Adam's better basics phrase, but that's about making data AI ready, thinking about how it's structured, how it's formed. I think in the Open Active goes some way towards doing that. We can provide a good, consistent, well-structured data feed that can be used in AI applications and models. The data must be accessible and usable. Well, Open Active is an open data initiative. Everyone who publishes a feed of that nice structured data is committing to making it open and to maintaining a particular level of quality over time. And then the systems that are using data need to be doing that responsibly. And I think there is something quite interesting for the sector to think about when using AI. A lot of the things that we think about in sport are related to health, and that's quite personal and sensitive data. But also, are we recommending the right activities to the right people if we're using AI to do that? I think we know there is more investment needed across the sector. So UK Active produce a survey every year called Digital Futures that measures a number of indicators of digital maturity. That there's an indicator for data in there, and actually the most recent set of results, the data confidence level has dropped. It's the only metric where it has dropped, and the kind of narrative from the survey suggests that actually, as the amount of data and the opportunity to innovate with data are increasing, people are becoming less confident because there's quite a low level of maturity in the sector. That said, I was at a conference a few weeks ago, and I was talking to Technogym, who are a big global producer of fitness machines. And they're doing some really interesting work with AI, and they're doing two things that I think are really relevant here. So first of all, they have built a tool to help people assess their wellness, and you answer questions about 8 aspects of your life, and then it gives you a wellness score based on your age. It's kind of your wellness age, and if your wellness age is your age, you're probably all right. If your wellness age is older than your age, you probably need to look at your wellness and improve your wellness. And that was quite nice, and there's quite a lot of AI built into that assessment. But they're also using AI to build well-being plans. So instead of going to the gym and you having your little card that tells you which machine you should use, and then you review that every 3 months with your PT, they can do that dynamically now in their app. So their app collects your exercise history. It can integrate with things like your wearable or with Strava, and they can build that kind of picture of your whole activity. And then they use that to recommend activities for you, both in the gym, on the gym floor, but also out of the gym between those sessions that you're in the gym. And it's just a really nice use of AI to improve the user experience, but also to enable the staff in those facilities to focus on the things that really matter with individuals.
Excellent. And I should say that other fitness machines are available at that point. Thanks, Andrew. So Molly, I'm going to come to you just now with the same question, but we've had a few questions from the audience as well, so I want to make sure that we leave time for those. So again, to you, how is the FA developing technologies or utilising technologies that are emerging into the market?
Sure, thanks, Emma. Yeah, I think a lot like Adam hit on earlier, for grassroots, we're trying to do more on doing the basics really well before jumping headfirst into AI. We have been going kind of through a period of massive digital transformation over the past 4 years. We're kind of hyper focused on fine tuning some of those key user experiences. That being said, we have started exploring AI in a couple of spaces. So one is in our grassroots customer service desk. We've received about 4 million tickets over the past 4 years, and we've started setting up some automations that reply to the user and kind of close that ticket. You can obviously see some efficiency gains there. We're also using AI in our Team Talk app, which is a chat functionality used by coaches and players or parents to kind of navigate the match day logistics. And so we've worked with a company called GoBubble to develop an AI-based content moderator overlay. So basically that chat kind of flags any inappropriate content so we can make sure that chats remain safe for all. I think broadly speaking, there's huge potential, as Adam already hit on, to bring some of the AI advances we're seeing in the elite game into the grassroots game. Those having AI kind of sift through match footage, right, to create highlight reels or coaching moments, or VR is slightly different, right? But we're starting to reduce heading in the youth game to decrease the risk of brain injury. So, could we explore VR to kind of develop some of those essential heading skills? Lots of kind of interesting things there. One last example I'll give it's not AI, but kind of one of the more innovative things we're doing with our grassroots data that we already have is trying to use it to retain people in the game. So we've built an email automation that triggers once our data kind of flags that someone has been really active in playing in games, and then all of a sudden they kind of stop playing in games. That email triggers and basically says, hey, like, have you moved? Why don't you use our Find Football tool to find new teams in your area? Are you injured? Why don't you kind of look at these resources we have for getting back out on the pitch? So again, not AI, but like ways that we can use those kind of heaps of data we've been talking about that we already have to do some quite clever and innovative things to kind of keep the game moving along.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Molly. I'm really struck and taken by that example of using virtual reality to either improve skills in the game or to help to protect people. So yeah, really fascinating. Thank you. Now, we've had a few questions from the audience. They've either come in today in the chat, or we did actually ask people to submit questions in advance as well on our social feeds. So the first one of these is for you, Adam. And the question is, there's so much in the news about river quality data. How does that affect you as a boat club? And my supplement to that is, how do you use that data, if at all?
A really good question, actually. And when I first came in post, actually a year ago today, one of the first things I was keen to explore was to try and kind of get under the skin of what is anecdotally quite a lot of information around, is the water good or bad? Really tried to kind of like get some clarity on this. So we started off with a citizen science approach to collecting water quality data as frequently as we could, weekly ideally. And we were collecting things like nitrate and phosphate data, which are indicators of organic pollution, which can also be linked to either agricultural runoff or to sewage overflows. Ahead of the boat race, we actually worked with River Action UK to collect E. coli data. And we looked at that because that has, that's again can be linked to wildlife, or it can be linked to sewage overflows as well. And we were collecting that, and it was really interesting looking at how the data jumps around a lot. Sometimes, most of the time, it was actually, I wouldn't say great, but it was low and within sort of on the top end of the bathing quality status set by the Environment Agency. But occasionally, after storm, sort of heavy rainfall events, it would jump up quite high. And there's an understanding there, which I think for us as a fairly risk-averse charity anyway, we wouldn't go out when the river's flowing fast. And if the weather is particularly bad, we probably wouldn't be going out anyway. So there's a relationship between how fast the river's flowing and whether there's been a sewage overflow, which naturally has been protecting our operations anyway, because we wouldn't be going out on the water. But actually understanding the relationship there and when it does spike is something that we've really been finding out through our own sort of data collection. We want to do more of that because it's really helping us to understand how the river changes and how it's so dynamic. But there has been a really big movement across the country where people have been testing the water and looking more into this. And the awareness has been growing, which is great because it is a risk that we need to mitigate against. We are a sport that is I'd say there's benefits of rowing in the sense that actually you're traveling backwards, you're on the water rather than in it. There's certain things that are helpful when you're rowing that would mitigate some of the risk anyway. But again, to make sure that all our participants stay really safe, we have been doing a lot of work to educate people around the risks of the water and at certain times of the year. And to be honest, reinstalling things like the hand sanitizers, making it really obvious around hand washing and cleaning all our equipment. But again, these come down to basic hygiene principles, but you need to make sure that people are aware that they're vitally important when you've been around poor water quality. So yeah, no, it's been a big topic. And again, it's just another area of data we've been collecting. So we've been collecting water quality data, and we've also been doing river cleanups, and we've been collecting the data on how much rubbish we've been clearing. So we're close to 500 kilos of rubbish we've been collecting, which is, I think, yeah, quite worrying in itself. But yes, again, these are other areas of data we've been collecting to do with the environment, which are fascinating and tell a story. And we're just getting started with how we tell that story. So another area would be seal sightings, which we collect through a ZSL platform, because there's, believe it or not, 4,000 seals in the tidal Thames. So lots of wildlife to look out for. And we've been switching over our coaching boats from petrol to electric. And we have one running, and it's been running since the beginning of the year. So we need to calculate how much CO2 we've saved in there. Anyway, I'm going off into a tangent of environmental data, but yes, water quality data has been something we've been really interested in because we wanted to make sure we understand it as best we can.
I mean, I love the examples that you were giving there about that sort of symbiotic relationship between people participating in sport and also getting involved in protecting the environment or monitoring the environment. And something that I think, you know, it's not unique to London, but because we have the Thames, and the Thames is such a sort of centre for community activities and for sporting activities, it's probably more acute here. That ability to participate in different ways. So thanks for bringing those examples to life. Molly, I've got two questions for you, and then I think we're probably going to be out of time, but I'm going to ask you them both together. So the first one, these are questions from the audience. We always hear about participation in tennis increasing around the time of Wimbledon. Do you see a similar thing happening in football during the Euros or other big tournaments, I guess? That's the first one. And then the second one, did you see an increase in women and girls playing after the England women's team won the Euros?
Yes, great questions, and can probably answer them both in one. So the answer is yes and yes. And I think, you know, we always see increases in participation around those big events, Euros, World Cup, that kind of thing. I think especially the Women's Euros in 2022 was a super exciting moment for not just, you know, women's and girls football, but women and girls sport and participation in physical activity more generally. I think we all know how the Lionesses kind of captivated the country and inspired, you know, thousands of more girls to pick up football, whether that be in kind of turning up to their local Wildcats session, which is a program we offer for young girls to kind of play and learn how to play the game, or in the affiliated game. We saw a huge increase in the number of women and girls teams after the Euros. So I think our work is just beginning here. I think we recognize the impact that these big events have, and I know we want to do more on this kind of, we've hit on it a couple of times, this sort of place-based work. So, you know, focusing on those areas of the country that hosted games and trying to make sure that those particular areas are supported, right? Because that's the big question. If we've got girls who want to play, we need to make sure the opportunities are there to support them. They need to have teams in place. Those teams need to be within clubs who understand how to offer women and girls, you know, safely, effectively, in a high quality environment. They need to have casual opportunities, right? So we need to make sure there's providers who are trained and qualified to offer those kinds of opportunities that are suitable and attractive to women and girls. So yes, huge amounts of excitement around those opportunities, and lots of work to be done to make sure we can really capitalize on all that excitement as well.
So much, and I think that's a really good place to finish up. We could probably have talked all morning, but thank you to all of you. So Adam, Molly and Andrew, for a really fascinating discussion about the role of data in sport and physical activity in London. Thanks, really good stuff. Now, for our final slot of Data Time TV from London Data Week. To finish, we've got an absolute treat for you. If you like data, cheesy music and gold lame, this is just the thing. I'm delighted to welcome Gavin Freeguard for a very special edition of the Data Game in a couple of minutes. This is the ODI's very own data game show where you can play along at home. So stay tuned. We just need a couple of minutes to get things set up for Gavin and his guests. We'll be right back in a couple of moments.
It's the data game. 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 The data game.
Hello, and welcome to the Data Game, the world's first, the world's best, the world's only data game show, where anything could go wrong, and usually does. I'm your host, Gavin Freeguard, Special Advisor at the Open Data Institute, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our 4th episode as part of London Data Week. If you've not seen the Data Game before, lucky you. Over the next 30 minutes, you will not only witness a data-driven joust of jollity and jeopardy as two titans tussle toe-to-toe over 3 rounds, you, our audience, will also get to take part, variously playing against our contestants, playing with them, even voting for them. Let's hope it's a closer contest than any other votes this week, and a more entertaining one than anything involving the England men's football team. So who's playing the data game this time round? Wits sharpened, fingers poised, hard-earned reputations inexplicably put on the line. Let's meet today's victims. Sorry, contestants. Miranda, who are you and what have you got to do with data?
Gavin, thank you as ever for an introduction that will stop us in our tracks. Who am I? I am Miranda Sharp. I'm an independent consultant and I work with a number of different bodies. But for the purposes of London Data Week, I am a former member of the Smart London Board and a current member of the Infrastructure Advisory Panel.
Fantastic. Great to have you with us. And Stefan, who are you and what have you got to do with data?
Morning, Gavin. I am Stefan Webb. I'm a senior partner at TPX Impact, who do various digital transformation projects with central, local government and other public services. What am I to do with London data? So I'm a kind of mutant who started my career at the Greater London Authority, interested in all things property development, infrastructure, where I first got interested in data. In fact, P-Towels was my gateway drug into data. So public transport accessibility levels, I just thought were heat maps. But someone then explained to me there's data and data science behind them, and that led my journey into more and more London data.
Well, brilliant to have you with us. So much expertise, none of which will be relevant to most of the rounds today. Before we let battle commence, let's test your very special buzzers, which you've selected yourselves. Miranda, let's hear yours first. What is it?
I borrowed this from my lovely neighbour Evie, who is 4, and I think it's a clam. And I've got a backup in case this one isn't loud enough.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Stefan, let's hear your buzzer.
It's broken.
It's broken. What was it supposed to be?
It was just a standard internet issue buzzer from my phone. that was as good as it got.
Well, not to worry, because we don't actually have a buzz around today anyway. But it's nice to get a small window into your souls. Maybe you could use them to get my attention, or as a cry for help. Without any additional further ado, let's start with round 1. Yes, it's the numbers game. 3 multiple choice questions about public attitudes towards data with more or less tenuous links with London, and our contestants have to write down the correct answer. Simple, right? Well, as with data and life, it's a bit more complicated than that. If both contestants get the question right, they get only 1 point each. If only one of them gets the question right, that contestant gets 2 points. Our contestants might choose to compare notes and cooperate. Well, why would they do that? Well, it's because they're also playing against you, our audience, who will get 1 point if a majority of you vote for the right answer in the polls that you'll be able to find via the Slido link in the chat. When you open that link, make sure you select the polls tab at the top. If at the end of the round, you, our audience, have more points than the highest scoring contestant, both contestants will lose all their points for the round. Our contestants will have 45 seconds to confer and confirm their answers once I've read out the question and 4 options. Audience, you might get slightly less time, so vote quickly using that link on Slido that you should find in the chat. Hopefully that will make sense, because there's no time to go through all it again anyway. Just try to give the right answer and you'll be fine. So let's start for a change with question 1. Now, London Data Week brings some focus on local government use of data. Back in 2021, a poll asked people how comfortable or uncomfortable they would be with their local council using data in particular ways. So the question is, which of these 4 possible uses recorded the highest support with a combined score of very or quite comfortable of 68%? Was it A, to predict people's weight and susceptibility to health conditions and improve access to exercise classes? B, to predict air quality and traffic jams to reduce journey times or encourage people to take different modes of transport? C, to identify children who might be at risk of domestic violence and arrange for social workers to visit those families? Or D, to predict whether you or family members might need extra support from local services, for example, to help families with children under 5 be ready to start school. Now, I'm going to prepare my very sophisticated electronic chronological device, a watch. So, contestants and audience, which use were people most comfortable with? Your 45 seconds, and contestants, you may confer, your 45 seconds start now.
They're all horrid, right?
So I'm guessing we should only pick 2 right answers. I'm going to collaborate with you, Miranda. So
hooray!
Let's think of the 2 that we would differently pick. I'm
staring away from I'm coming away from the children under 5, and the. I thought we were going to keep the questions in front of us. And there was another one about health outcomes, wasn't it? That was B and E?
So A is weight and health conditions, B is air quality and traffic jams, C, identifying children, D, extra support.
So D, nobody's comfortable, B, the science is bonkers.
And you've got 5 seconds left.
I think air quality is all right because people know that Google track them anyway. So I'm going to
is that C? Is that C?
I'm going to go that's C. I'll go for B, you go for C.
Okay.
So excellent. We've got a C from Miranda and a B for Stefan. Lovely to see some collaboration around data there. We love to see some of that. Even though ultimately Stefan did screw you over there, Miranda, because B is the correct answer. So he gets 2 points and you get 0. Let's see what our audience went for on that one. Our audience also got it right. So they get a point for going for air quality.
Oh, but the science of air quality is so poor. Oh, makes me cross.
But as you were suggesting, maybe a less controversial use than some of the others. It's worth saying, so 68% of people were quite or very comfortable with that, 20% were uncomfortable. Option A, which was the weight, susceptibility and exercise one, 50% of people would have been comfortable with that, but 36% were not. That was the lowest net score in that survey. Option C, which was at-risk children, was just 1 point behind air quality on 67%. And option D on extra support wasn't far behind on 62%. I might get some reflections from you at the end of this round about what you think of some of those, but we're going to move on now to question 2. London hosts some fine data-related institutions, as well as the Open Data Institute. That includes the Ada Lovelace Institute and the Alan Turing Institute, who in 2023 looked at attitudes towards artificial intelligence, for which data is, of course, the feedstock. So according to that research, which of these uses of AI was seen to be least beneficial, with 52% saying either it would be not very or not at all beneficial? A, driverless cars, B, autonomous weapons, C, assessing job eligibility, or D, targeted political advertising. Your 45 seconds starts now.
I mean, that's surely the most useless is targeted political advertising, but that's actually probably the easiest one to do.
It depends what you mean by it says least beneficial, though. So, like automated AI weapons, gee, unbeneficial to most of society, I'd argue, but they might be quite effective.
No, we're looking at beneficial. Right, I'm having D. And you can win with B.
No, is our strategy, if I get all the points, we have collectively beaten the audience?
That is very much our strategy.
Very good.
10 seconds.
All right, let's go. Right, I'm going to have it written down in time now, a nice big.
Okay, so you've gone for B, Stefan, and Miranda, you've gone for D. So you've gone for your same split strategy. One of you was again correct. This time it was Miranda. So 2 points to Miranda, none to Stefan, and also none to our audience, who went for autonomous weapons with a thumping 59%. That was not the right answer. Just to go through some of the other answers quickly. So yeah, 52% of people thought political advertising was not beneficial, just ahead of targeted consumer advertising on 50%, which wasn't one of our options. It's also ahead of C, job eligibility on 47%, A, driverless cars on 45%, and way ahead of autonomous weapons on 29%. Assessing the risk of cancer was seen as the most beneficial use of AI, followed by facial recognition for border control, policing, and unlocking phones, in that order. Now, the audience score on that round means that, well, actually, they can still tie if you both get the next question wrong. So no pressure on our contestants there. Question 3. A 2022 government survey asked the public how much they understood key terms and technologies like algorithms, cookies, and deep fakes. But it also included a totally made-up technology, neural turbines, to test if people were overclaiming how much they knew. So this is your question. Overall, 15% of people said yes, they did understand the term neural turbines. What percentage of Londoners said they understood the term? Was it A, 12%, B, 24%, C, 40%, or D, 51%? Audience, go to Slido. Contestants, your 45 seconds start now.
So I know that men were overrepresented in the sample that said they knew this. And Gavin has used this on an IFG Data Bytes before.
And Londoners are naturally braggy anyway.
Oh, okay. I think 51's far too high.
Yeah, it's 40 or 24, I'd say.
Okay, you pick first then, mate.
I'm gonna be consistent. I'm gonna go for B again, 24.
Yeah, I think C's a bit high. Can I have A?
You can have A, yeah.
Okay, thanks very much.
You've come to your answers early there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry.
chat amongst yourselves for about
Okay,
5 seconds. It's fine.
Okay.
Let's see your answers since you've got. So we've got Stefan going with B, and we've got Miranda going with A. So you thought Londoners were less arrogant, Miranda. You were wrong. Stefan is right. The correct answer was B, 24%, which is also what our audience went for. I'm sure I could have dragged that out for some sort of tension, but actually there isn't any, because Stefan finishes that round with 4 points and Miranda finishes that with 2 points. Since you're wondering, and Miranda, you mentioned this, A, 12% was how many women said they knew the term versus 17% of men. 51% was the score for a group the survey described as optimistic tech dabblers, while 40% was the percentage of Londoners who understood, or said they understood, the term deepfake, compared to 28% of the population overall. So, Stefan, Miranda, any reflections on that round? What surprised you? What didn't surprise you?
The first question really surprised me, because the data is so weak in those areas to make those predictions that I would be worried that if anyone said that they could do those things, I would be worried. And my first question would be, where did you get the data from?
Right.
I'm most enthused by the what was that last term, amateur tech dabbler kind of thing. I think that's me. I'm slightly worried. I feel quite seen by that category.
Which begs the question, Stefan, what's a neural turbine?
I'm sure people, given the interesting tech developed by people like Mr. Musk in terms of the Neuralink, maybe people were thinking, oh yes, surely Musk has done something like that as well. Maybe it just makes your brain go faster with a turbine.
But I think you were right when you said that Londoners were more braggy. I thought that was very useful insight there.
Excellent. A really lovely takeaway for London Data Week. Let's move on now to round 2. Yes, it's only 60 seconds, the round that tests our contestants' ability to make things up on the spot and sound plausible, like they're some sort of large language model. The way we think and talk about data can dramatically shape how we use it. Metaphors matter. You may be familiar with data is the new oil, a dreadful metaphor, but a great concept for a round in a data-related game show. I'll ask each contestant to speak for just a minute about a data is the new X metaphor. They'll be allowed to keep going regardless of hesitation, repetition, or deviation. But after you, the audience, have heard both metaphors, you'll get to vote for the contestant you thought busked it best. And again, you'll be able to use the Slido link to do that once you've heard both of our contestants. So we're going to start with Miranda. Miranda, your metaphor is data is the new wine. Data is the new wine. Take a few moments to think about it. Remember, audience, you'll be voting for your favourite contestant once you've heard both. So data is the new wine. Miranda, your 60 seconds starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about data being the new wine. Like wine, data has the opportunity, and wine have the opportunity to be invested in, and in fact they need to be invested in, because invariably the place where the data is made, it is in large supply, and it requires investing in, and much of the investing in wine and data is unglamorous work and involves heavy lifting. I think. Wine is easy to imbibe and easy to get drunk on. So lots of people will enjoy a great deal of wine. And certainly as they enjoy more of it, their appetite for it can increase. their trust in it will increase, even though the quality might have decreased. Data, of course, is like wine, is a global
Time's
phenomenon.
up, I'm afraid, Miranda. Time's up. Thank you
Just
very
got into
much.
my stride there.
Thank you very much indeed for that. And I have to say, a much more positive metaphor than some of you may have heard on the hit TV show Succession, where at one point the character Tom says, "Information, Greg, it's like a bottle of fine wine. You store it, you hoard it, you save it for a special occasion, and then you smash someone's face in with it." A great sentiment for all of us there. And I'm very glad you were much more positive, Miranda. So thank you very much for that. Now it's your turn, Stefan. Your metaphor is data is the new oxygen. Data is the new oxygen. Again, take a few moments to think about it. Again, audience, go to Slido. You'll be voting for your favorite contestant in just over a minute's time. Stefan, data is the new oxygen. Your 60 seconds starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about how data is the new oxygen. Obviously, this is a particularly terrible game for me, as I talk far too fast usually. And actually, I need lots of oxygen to speak fast and lots of data to tell me what to say. And one of the similarities between oxygen and data is there's lots of hot air around both of them. We've all been up in the data air balloon, surveying the City of London and its vast deposits of data and oxygen, and we've enjoyed seeing how much that data is used, but also how that data is polluted. We know the problems of poor data standards, uninteroperable systems, and we need to get rid of that pollution through rigorous data standards and a new Clean Air and Clean Data Act for London.
And that was pretty much bang on time. Thank you very much, Stefan. Now, audience, you're going to have around 30 seconds to vote for your favourite, Miranda on wine or Stefan on oxygen, as it were. While you do that, Stefan, what were your reflections on that round, your metaphor and Miranda's?
I liked how Miranda, isn't there a famous data saying, like data, good data ages like wine, not like cheese or something?
Technology ages like fish.
That's the fish, that's the one.
That's the Lisa Allen one, that one.
Yeah, that's a very good one. Surprised not to hear that. And I should have brought in Miranda's air quality data is terrible, or air quality modeling is terrible, actually, from your earlier point.
And Miranda, how did you find that?
I thought Stefan was fantastic, and his finish with the flourish of the Clean Air Act was exemplary and fantastic. At one point, I thought you were going to go as far as the O2 and say that it's like the O2. So yes, I was blown away by it. I would have used a lot of the metaphors for oil, actually. So you can't do anything without it. Necessary for, so it's the fuel of business. I'm still cross that I didn't know that. I've never watched Traitors, so I didn't know you put it in a bottle and smash someone's face with it.
Yes, but not to be recommended for those of you watching us at home, it must be said. Now the votes are in, and it's 50% each. So everyone loved both of you, which is great. It's totally pointless, but I'll give you 2 points each. Why not? So that means that we go into the final round with Miranda on 4 points and Stefan on 6 points. So let's play round 3. Yes, it's the generative game. It's nice to see you blank. Because this round isn't actually a rip-off of Bruce Forsyth's finest. Oh no. Instead, I'll be channeling the great Terry Wogan. And a game you might just recognise as a very modern take on blankety blank. Yes, I'm going to give our contestants a phrase. We've replaced a word with a blank. Our contestants will have 30 seconds maximum to write down a word they think should replace that blank. Then we'll see how many of our celebrity panel, don't get too excited, have written down the same word. Our contestants will get a point for each match they get. Stefan, Miranda, shall we meet our celebrities?
Oh, yes.
Are you excited, even though you've seen the running order and you know exactly what's about to happen?
I've forgotten the running order.
Brilliant. That's what we like to hear. So let's meet our celebrities playing today. They are ChatGPT from OpenAI, Pi from Inflection AI, Claude from Anthropic, Gemini from Google, and Perplexity from Perplexity AI. And for the third and final question only, they'll be joined by you, the audience, from all over the place, literally, and by this point in proceedings, no doubt figuratively as well. Yes, instead of actual celebrities, we've asked 5 different generative AI tools to play along. You, our audience, will also get to vote on the third and final question only over on Slido. I bet you can hardly contain yourselves. But let's start.
Funny, or are we trying to be right?
Well, this is entirely up to you. Do you want to be funny? Do you want to be what humans might think of as right? Or do you want to try to game what you think the generative AI tools might come up with? How exciting is this? So let's give you the first question. This is contestants and Gen AI only. William Tell found himself in the 21st century with his son. Instead of shooting an apple on the top of his head, he shot a blank. William Tell found himself in the 21st century with his son. Instead of shooting an apple on the top of his head, he shot a blank. Write down your answers now, contestants, and let me know when you're finished. You've got a maximum of 30 seconds, but hopefully it won't take you that long. Shall we see what you went for, contestants? So William Tell found himself in the 21st century with his son. Instead of shooting an apple on the top of his head, he shot a what? Let's have a look. What did you go for? So we've got an iPhone from Stefan. And what have you got written down there on your post-it note, Miranda?
Mac.
A Mac. So I really like that. Presumably you were both going for an Apple pun there, which you knew I'd appreciate. The question is, have the generative AI tools appreciated that? Let's see the answers from our Gen AI tools. We had 3 of them go for drone. Quite. And 2 of them went for smartphone. So I am going to give Stefan 2 points there. Now, I'll also ask those generative AI tools why they gave those answers. All of them went for drone or smartphone as quintessentially modern objects. I'm particularly intrigued by Gemini, which said that replacing the apple with a drone, quote, keeps the element of a small airborne object requiring precise archery, which raises several questions about 14th century Swiss apples. Perplexity, meanwhile, notes that smartphones are ubiquitous devices that, quote, people, including children, constantly have with them or on their heads. Perplexity, indeed. Let's move to our second question. You're going to be filling in 2 blanks this time. Artificial intelligence is neither blank nor blank. AI is neither blank nor blank. Write your answers down now, Stefan and Miranda. Are you done? I can hear scribbling, frantically, furiously, fourth wall breakingly. Let's see what you've got. So we've got sentient and intelligent from Stefan. And Miranda, what have you gone for?
I was really tempted to do artificial and intelligent, but instead I did intelligent and intuitive.
Interesting. Shall we see what, because I wondered if you might go for artificial or intelligent, which, for instance, Kate Crawford, the AI expert, says that is made from natural resources and it's people who are performing the tasks to make the systems appear autonomous. What did our Gen AI tools go for? Well, ChatGPT went with human and infallible, Pi with perfect and sentient, Claude with good and evil, Perplexity also went with good and evil, and Gemini went with sentient and omnipotent. So I think That gives us, I'll be generous and give half a point to Stefan on that one. Interesting common themes, I think, from the chatbots there, though I'm enjoying the contrast between ChatGPT, which says AI isn't human, and Claude and Perplexity, which stress the role of humans in how the tools are used. So I would like to say there's something to play for here on the final question, but there isn't, so I'm just going to skip over that and bring our audience back in. Our final question, question 3, it's a 2-word phrase with 1 blank, the super intelligence match game, if you will. So audience, remember, you can go to the Slido link in the chat. We're going to give you several options. Please vote for your favorite. The final question is simply this. Data blank.
And you want 3 words?
You've got a 3-word. You can use any word you want. Data blank. Audience, do you get involved on Slido? You should be able to vote for some options over there. I'm going to give you a few more moments in the audience to log your vote. The Slido should be open for your selections. Let's see. So Stefan and Miranda, have you got answers written down?
We're meant to have 3.
No, just one. Just one.
Okay, I've written down 3 anyway.
Choose your favorite.
Okay.
So we're going to close, I think, the audience voting there. So Stefan and Miranda, what did you have? Data blank.
I had data people.
Data people. I like that.
I also had nonsense and stuff.
People, nonsense, and stuff. That's a great sort of title for an autobiography or something, I feel. And Stefan, what did you go for? Data are. Oh, referring to the long-standing, is it data is or data are? I like the references there. The question is, did the Gen AI go for any of those? Let's see the answers from the generative AI tools. And the short answer is no, none of them did. So we had analysis, privacy, science, driven, and mining. Whereas out of the options they went for, the audience went for data protection. So no points for anybody there. Well done. That's more in the spirit of the data game than actually getting things right, which you were doing earlier on. So before we wrap up and I give you the long-awaited final scores, Miranda and Stefan, any reflections on your experience playing the data game today? What did you find most surprising? Did you enjoy it? Would you recommend us to a friend? Would you leave a positive review on Google, TripAdvisor, or wherever you listen to your podcasts? What did you think?
It was quite scary. I regret recommending Stefan because then he roundly beat me on every round. But I did enjoy collaborating with him.
Likewise, and I was absolutely petrified for 60 seconds. I can't ever do that again. That was quite horrific, but also fun, hopefully for others.
Did you learn anything? Is there one thing that you would take away from today's experience in inverted commas?
Some of the AI hallucinations were quite, very surprising. And being an optimistic tech dabbler, that maybe isn't surprising.
And Miranda, how about you?
It was rubbish, wasn't it? So I liked seeing the difference between the different models.
Excellent. And again, other models are available other than the ones that were used. So after all that, a huge congratulations to today's winner, Stefan, by 14.5 points to 8. Congratulations to Stefan. Huge commiserations to, well, both of you and everyone watching, frankly. Miranda and Stefan, thank you so much for playing the data game today. Everyone, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed today's data game. I hope maybe you even learnt something, thought about data differently, or were simply able to justify having half an hour not doing any work because it was vaguely work-related. Whether you did or didn't, just remember this. That's 30 minutes of our lives we're never getting back. Goodbye.
Oh, too much fun. Thank you, Steph.
Thanks again to Gavin, Miranda and Stefan for that edition of the Data Game. Oh, and of course to you, the audience, for taking part. And that's it for Data Time TV. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'd like to say a big thank you to all of our panelists and contestants and presenters. And thank you for watching Data Time TV. Don't forget, there's lots more events taking part or happening as part of London Data Week, and you can head over to londondataweek.org to find out all about those. And if you'd like to watch today's event again, I can't think why you would want to do that, but if you did want to do that, then it'll be published on the ODI's website soon and also on our social feeds. But do tell your friends, because maybe they didn't get a chance to join us today. So until next time, it just remains to me to say thank you very much again for joining us, and goodbye.